Hello, welcome to Networking Field Day 14. You are about to watch a presentation from Kentik that includes a group of invited social media influencer delegates who are here to ask questions, make comments, and offer their opinions about the technology of Kentik. If you'd like to learn more about this and other videos in the series, please go to our website at techfieldday.com or check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/techfieldday.
Okay, thank you, and viewers, welcome back. We're talking about Kentik at Network Field Day. We just did a brief introduction to who Kentik is and what we're about, and now I'm going to do a high-level demo. We've structured the day, so I'm going to do a brief, very high-level fly-through intro. I'm going to skip some of the systems in detail, more detail, like the anomaly detection system, which Jim Meehan will be doing a presentation on, or I guess maybe Dan Ellis will be. We're going to talk about also peering analytics. I'll show you a high level, but we'll do a separate presentation on that. We're going to do a separate presentation on how it all works behind the scenes with our backend. And then at the end, I'll do one on network performance management, the how do we get performance data out of the infrastructure and make sense of it. So with that, I will log into the system. You can see I really am still an old ISP guy. I've got my Elm. There is now Elm Millennium Edition, which has MIME and Maildir and IMAP support, and that is what I use for a lot. So the Kentik Detect system is taking flow. In this case, we have a Cisco, we have a 3BXL, which I'm not ashamed to admit that I still use, some MXs, some servers running a host agent to generate flow. We also take SNMP to correlate flow versus total SNMP traffic. We're not primarily an SNMP system. And we peer BGP. We can both apply BGP routes from a device we're getting flow from, and we can take that BGP table and apply it to other devices as well. When the Kentik system is getting flow, we actually unify BGP in real time. So we're actually running routing tables that are in just layer and take the AS path and community string and put it on the flow, which I'll show you some of the use cases of. So Kentik Detect system is a portal. It's a set of APIs, which I'll show you a little bit of. And it's also an anomaly detection system, which we'll have a separate presentation on. So generally, this system is used by people logging into our the Kentik hosted systems. Sometimes we will deploy a copy of the Kentik cluster in someone's network if they have data privacy concerns, or in many cases, they might be building a product or a service on top of it, and they just have a policy that everything that is component has to be internal. One of the very interesting things we've seen is that sometimes people have almost had no DMZs anymore, if anyone remembers DMZs, and then wind up creating them for a per product basis to be able to isolate from the rest of their network. So typically people will start with dashboards. Now we do have some canned ones, but one feature of the Kentik system is anything that you're doing where you're spelunking and looking at something, you can save that view and put it as an element into a dashboard. And anything that's, yes. Spelunking, yes.
Spelunking, which
I don't want to get sued.
Cave diving.
Yes.
In other words, when you're wandering around looking for something.
Exactly.
Right.
Maybe you have a little headlight on here. So again, you can start at the dashboard. And another feature is this particular dashboard is looking at traffic by geography. So it's looking at IP geographies and the data feed that we take, that we augment. It pretty much all sucks, but is better than nothing. And so we do have some customers that have their own IP geography databases that we can plug in instead of, Dan, what are we using? Not MaxMind.
It's a company that combines a bunch of them together.
Okay.
Slightly higher probability.
It's all basically Perl scripts and monkeys.
Yes.
But again, it's useful, indicative. It's just like a smart 6-year-old. If your spidey sense tingles, then you just know that it's wrong. But one of the features of Kentik is anything that we're doing, if I looked at the north central traffic, I can just go into the data explorer. Let me make it just a little bit smaller. And it's now instantly accessible. And the query that was actually in the dashboard gets loaded up. I'll make it even yet a little bit bigger. So what does North Central mean? It means tags that are, and then not like my network. What is my network? It's a tag I could show you, which is my AS. Kentik lets you do very flexible tags. You can think of them as BGP communities in ASCII, and you can have any number of them. So you can say, it's this service, it's this customer. A lot of ISPs, if they'll put us into their portal, will actually program us via APIs, and then every customer for their prefixes will have a tag. But you could have not only property, which might be IPs, but also which element of it. So is it the front end? Is it the back end? Is it database server? And then geography. And we allow almost any depth. I'm sure there's some practical limit of queries, and I'll show you a little bit about this when we go back to the Data Explorer. Desc geo region equals, and then we actually just listed the states.
So just curious, I mean,
yeah.
since you guys have that capability, are you in any internet exchanges? Because I mean, I would think
Yep.
you could really get some great peering analytics out of an IX.
Yes, but, it's, okay. I can't name
Yes,
customers,
but, yes,
but you
but. Gotcha.
might have just named a customer of ours.
Gotcha.
And we love for people to expose this into Portal. What we're doing is we do have some IXs that are customers. With France IX, with Lynx over in Europe, they're not so hot about sending all their S-Flow to a US company. But what we've done is said we have an offer so that anyone that's on the IX will give them a free port so they can send us their traffic instead of the exchange.
Oh, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I know some people that run IXs, and that
We would absolutely love.
this would be a really
Right.
helpful thing.
What you often have in the IXs is just an traffic matrix, but it doesn't really tell you, am I getting broadcast traffic? Is someone next hopping through me? Who should I connect to?
Sure.
Another thing we're playing with, and we do have a customer that's taken peering DB and actually built tags based on that into the Kentik system.
Oh wow, that's pretty slick.
So there's one kind of tag which is you can search on, and you can have, and then another becomes a column that you can group by. So you can actually say, show me the top networks, and then show me by which exchange. So you could say, how much traffic could I move to that exchange? Yeah.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
And we're hoping, again, that as things grow and we get more POPs in Europe, that we'll actually be able to drive that and put it out into the portal. Because our goal is that every Internet Exchange customer, every backbone customer says, why does my service provider give me better visibility than my own tools do? Obviously, we think that'll be good for marketing. So.
Sure.
Yep. And so I'll go back to the Data Explorer, but everything in the dashboard is always live. And you can have your own personal dashboards. There's some for the company. There's some that are presets. You can share them. They also can become reports that you can generate. We have another function which we'll have a separate presentation on, which is peering analytics. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the Data Explorer and show you can generate diagrams like this that show you how the traffic flows across your network. The peering analytics maybe takes 20, 30 seconds, and what it actually does is show you the traffic flowing across the entire AS path. And what it's designed to let you do is pull out things like, okay, Equinix Ashburn's the site, and does this have a laser pointer? No, it has an IR. You guys can't see IR, right? So, oh, okay. And then the device, the two of them are servers and NTP3A, and NTP is the protocol for Usenet. And Cat2, which is the Avi VXR, and then 23352 and 54054 are our transit providers. And then, unfortunately, at this low resolution, it's a little bit hard to see, but this one is probably 2914. I see 29, and that's NTT America Vario. So I have a lot of traffic going there. In front of 23352 means maybe I want to connect to them. Or 174, Cogent. I'll say PSI. If anyone remembers PSI Stadium in Baltimore. Cogent, also known as a good place to get IPv4 addresses if you need them, because they're sitting on a /8. And then how does the traffic actually flow across? And we'll have a separate presentation on that. That's another way that you can view traffic. And we have two alerting systems. The first is you actually just run SQL queries against the backend. And that's our, before we had the current learning-based anomaly detection system. And that was very functional for DDoS. It was how I thought people wanted to do alerting, because that was how Akamai does all of their alerting, and I was there for many years. And then we discovered that is not, in fact, how people want to do alerting, and we built a new alerting system. Pretty much only people that were at Akamai want to have their library of SQL queries that they run to go get data. In terms of admin, users, devices, we talked a little bit about tags. So tags, my network is the one which we really set up for everybody. It also helps you with the Gesindte, the Gesauta, like what's my traffic, what's external. But you can really set up just about anything. So you can say my DNS servers, and then you could list name servers, including prefixes, ports. We let you actually pick parts of ASPath, BGP communities. If you have a European community in your network, you can pull that out, and then it's called Europe. And then people that don't know your BGP community map by head, in their heads can do it. We've even currently have people doing threat intelligence, for example, taking the emerging threats rule set out, and this, we can't see the whole one because it's many, many IPs addresses. We're building a new streaming system that actually can hold millions of data points for tags for people trying to do large-scale threat intelligence and just generally be able to do, for example, modern DevOps, where they might have machines coming up and down, and IP addresses associated with a Docker, or an IP address and port range, if you're using that, associated with an instance for 10 minutes. Everything that we're doing, all these tags, like BGP, it's applied when we get the flow. It's applied at ingest. We'll never really come along afterwards. The only thing we do is we do unify SNMP interface names afterwards, because those can change. But otherwise, it's all done at ingest. We also, as I mentioned, let you create what we call custom dimensions, which are tags that become things you can group by. So a very common DevOps thing is you'll have service name, you'll have a customer ID for a service provider, and people want to then make that a group by, or make it something in that kind of flow diagram. So we allow people to create that. So now we'll go over to the Data Explorer. So the Data Explorer is not typically where we land people. Typically we'll land people in dashboards that are functional for whatever they're trying to look at, whether it's performance or cost or sort of backbone engineering, or it might have been an alert that was triggered. And again, in our system, if you get an alert, you can always link over to the traffic and then actually just poke around and look at the traffic in different dimensions, look at it back over time. So in the Kentik Data Explorer, the main feature is that you can look in any dimension or set of dimensions, and I'll show you that. You're not limited to one dimension, just top protocols or ports or country, but you can look across multiple dimensions. You can look across multiple devices. You can really see the entire infrastructure. Anything that you do, any query that you do, you can always put into a dashboard, or you can show the API call that you would need, and you just substitute your auth info, and then that's the API call that you make to get exactly the query that you set up, either the raw data or the graph if people want to put it into their portal. So we try to make it super easy, because as we mentioned, for exchanges, for service providers, we want this kind of flexible visibility for people so they can double click on SNMP and then go and see their infrastructure. We also, for those old nerds like me who like SQL, you can actually get the SQL query that's sitting underneath the API for our Redshift-like system that we built. So in the Data Explorer, this particular view is, we're still looking at the regional traffic. So let me make it simpler. Let me remove the groups. Now I've got the devices. Let me actually look at just a couple of routers. And now we're looking at these two routers, Cat2 demo and a core ISP router. I'm looking at my network traffic, and I'm just grouping it by AS number. So first thing is dimensions that you might want to look across. And again, I'll make that a little bit bigger. So we support a number of different dimensions, including down there you can see BGP communities, the entire AS path, the next hop, the last hop, the second hop AS, which can be interesting for some people. The custom dimensions that we created, like service name, customer ID, so you're not limited to the traditional dimensions of looking at flow, and source dest, or really across the entirety. So one of the very interesting things that you can do is, of course, we could change AS number, which is the destination AS. That would be the origin AS. And we could look at the destination country and apply. Now, this is running over the last hour of data, and it will just give us an answer. Typically, and we monitor this, for 95% of the queries that people run interactively, we get the answers in a couple seconds. And we have a cluster of all flash machines that are designed for that, because we really want to be interactive for spelunking and not a reporting engine, which is people go get their coffee.
Click and wait.
Click it. Because again, you've been there where you're doing your god-awful bidirectional trace routes in this window, and you've got the ticket open here, and you're poking around, and then all of a sudden everything gets magically better by the time you actually had a chance to see what's going on.
You're looking for inspiration. Quite often in these platforms, you're clicking, thinking, clicking, 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 clicking.
Right.
Oh, no, that didn't work. Go back, start again. And that's what, as you say, spelunking has to happen at a sort of a pace that follows your thinking as you go hunting for the hay in a haystack kind of thing.
Interactive, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be interactive.
Yeah, because human brain can lose the thread. I lose my stack pointer at least a couple times a day. I've never found it once I lose it. When I'm actively searching, it always comes back in a garbage collect run. So another interesting thing with Kentik is we can actually look across multiple dimensions. So I might want to say, show me the traffic from the prefix. And by prefix, we have IPv4, we store a separate column, source and dest. We have IPv6, but we also have a concept of just IP address. And then so we have two different prefix lengths depending on which protocol. Some people like 64, some people like 128 as the /32 of IPv6, and we're agnostic. So however people want to be able to use it. So I'll drag that up. So let's look at prefix. Let's look at our next hop AS number, and let's look at the next hop AS number, and then let's look at what country it's going to, and then let's look at what origin AS. So I can run this query, and what it'll do is it'll create one graph line for all of those things. And that can be interesting. Sometimes you'll have, in this case, it's 63 megabits max or 40 megabits, just going from us to Comcast. Not that surprising. In aggregate, now, I can get down to the individual flows in the system, but this is aggregated these ways. But it can be more interesting to change the graph type to a Sankey diagram, which is what we saw in the peering analytics, so that now I can actually see that displayed as a flow. All it really is is the same thing. It's a group by in SQL, but it's a great way of displaying it that can give you an idea of, okay, those are my prefixes sending traffic. Those happen to be for Usenet, 94 and 84. It's going to, the next hop AS is 6169, and then these are the destination countries that it's going to, and the destination ASs. In this case, this is serving primarily in Europe, so it's not surprising that the traffic is going to Europe. And again, in Kentik, we didn't have to define in advance, this is the way I want to look at it. If I instead want to add from AS number, I want to add, or let's say I want to add destination, I want to change country to region, then I can do it, I can rerun it, and it gives us the answer. The difference between this and the peering analytics is I'm not actually projecting it onto every hop of the AS path and sort of dynamically pulling out the big ones. So I could do the entire AS path instead of just the next hop AS or the origin AS, but it wouldn't do the aggregates across the middle ASs if I just do this in the Kentik Data Explorer. And again, because this is just a query, I can also go get the API call, and this could be in a report that I generate, it could be in a dashboard on Kentik, or it could be used by your Perl, Python, PHP, R, whatever your favorite language of munging data is when something doesn't have a feature that you need. We try with tags, the goal is to make it so that a lot of network-based queries you could do just in Kentik without having to pull it out, but there's always something that people might need to do. And so that's a very high-level view. We'll go deeper into the alerting system, which lets you create anomaly-based rules and alerting. I'd say 75% of our customers use the alerting system for DDoS attack detection, but it's good for traffic engineering and performance as well. So you can say, show me if someone is now in a top 10 or top N on an interface or across devices, traffic-wise, or someone's dropped out, which can be even more interesting when all of a sudden you don't have Twilio traffic. And actually, I will show you one more thing. Let's add, let me clear this, go back to next hop AS, change the graph type back, which it should do automatically, please, Dan, since we have our feature request in the room. And then let me add some more devices. So today, with just routers, we have bits per second, packets per second, and then for DDoS, it's very interesting to see unique source and dest IPs. That can be a big indicator of DDoS. If we enable some of the host agents running on those two servers, what that does is it will unlock additional dimensions. So from the host agent, and we use nprobe that we've integrated with, nprobe now can speak our Kflow non-templated protocol, just on top of, which is just sitting on top of Cap and Proto. Now we can actually see out-of-order packets, retransmits, and then client, server, and application latency. And at the end, I'll go through and show you some use cases of that and how people that are running services and how people that are running the network can actually cooperate to figure out, is there a problem in the network or not. We'll actually use our production infrastructure. We just have to be a little bit careful of what we pull because we don't want to show our customers, but we can dig down into our API, look at it by country, see whether there might be a problem by network, by country, and maybe there is. We'll find out. Sometimes there is, and we run a network just like everybody and need to do some tuning.
So one question.
Yeah.
These graphs are really cool, and being able to go and look at our networks, our BGP, can you overlay what is normal versus what we're looking at right now, or some sort of baseline?
We do not fully. I would say not fully as we will be able to later this year. There's two ways. First, for any query, we'll show you what the last 7 days has been, which is not what I would call a rigorous, sort of definition of normal. The other is that our alerting system is actually doing learning and determining what is normal. Today, that's a separate system, though. And the alerting system is necessarily doing its own sort of directional looking and is actually doing a little bit of aggregation, so it wouldn't necessarily match up to every single query that you might form ad hoc. But our goal is to be able to provide more of that sort of, this is now, this is normal. And one thing you can do is just increase the time scale. But I agree it'd be nice to have the system sort of tell you this is usual, unusual in the Data Explorer. Right. And that's, I'd say not next couple quarters, but that's something we're working on.
For a lot of us, that's our first question. Like, what? I mean, we don't.
Yeah, you don't know
things
every
on a
flow in
day-to-day
your
basis.
network.
We're like, oh.
Dan, do you want to correct me?
Yeah, Avi, if you click the Kentik logo, the minus 1 week is actually, as being somebody that ran networks, has actually been very, very useful to do exactly what you're saying. So if you look at the graph here, you'll see that there's a blue line, which is your total, and then you'll see a dotted line underneath of it, which is the minus 1 week traffic, which like he said, it's not a perfect of what is normal, but it's a pretty good guess that I'm way out of whack of what I was last week.
You can change the look back too. There's a control to say, instead of -7 days, I want it to be -30 days, or I want it to be -1 day, or whatever.
Right. But that's an area of future product for us. So I'm just about at the end of the high-level overview. Again, we'll do a deeper dive on anomaly detection, on the network performance, talk about the back end, and also on the peering analytics. But are there any other high-level questions?
Just a quick question on licensing. Yeah. What does the licensing look like for Kentik?
So we charge per exporting device, hundreds of dollars a month, depending on whether it's, on the low end, it could be a top-of-rack switch or a MikroTik or whatever, up to a terabit router sending thousands of flows per second.
Okay, so if I've got two-edge routers, if I'm an enterprise and I'm dual homed and I'm peering with my two favorite upstreams,
exactly.
I take those two routers and then I pay a couple licenses to get that kind of visibility for the gateway for my enterprise.
We do all the heavy lifting, and what typically happens is people start with the border of their network because we've built a lot of functionality around that. There's some things that are missing that are coming, like a map-based view, like traffic matrices for in a data center. So we have people using us for data center and for WAN, but we're rolling out more functionality for those. So often people start at the border and then they'll add the data center. They've got a clause architecture and there's hotspots they want to push to their provisioning system. Hey, why are these uplinks heavy? Let me put those workloads together, or just on the WAN.
Yeah, that's great, because I kind of want to understand, I'm a service provider guy, so I get the service provider use case. I mean, that's absolutely clear, but in the enterprise, I was curious as to outside of your BGP upstreams, where are the use cases?
We have some enormous enterprise that look like some of our smallest customers because they start at the border because it was a DDoS RFP or something. And then what happens is we've had people upgrade to be from the smallest to the top 10 when they say, oh my God, I need this for the WAN, or the network security group is playing around with not Spelunk, but Splunk, and there's no network savviness in it in Splunk to group by prefix or understand anything, and then they go, oh wait, I can just turn off Splunk, which is very expensive, and use this, but that means I have to add devices for the WAN, or again, the data center. So
you see this as a product that operates in the same space as something like Splunk? I wouldn't have made that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I'll actually show you because we can get URLs, we can get DNS queries when we have the host agent that can extract all that. I would say we are definitely replacing, we've almost never replaced an entire Splunk instance, but we've often replaced Splunk for network analytics because Splunk is very expensive and doesn't really understand the network. Yes, you could use our backend for more free-form searching, but we are much more structured. We want IP addresses for sort of every record, whereas you could send a syslog into Splunk, which doesn't even have IP addresses. So we're not really a full replacement for Splunk. It's more that we meet, and people are using Splunk on the network side for things which it's not really designed for, and then we'll move that workload to us. And then again, because we're open, Splunk has a database connector. We can look like a Postgres database. You can have your DevOps or security or business intelligence analytics. When you want to get data on an IP or a prefix, you could click in Splunk and pull the data from us because we're an online database too.
I mean, when I see all this data in one place, and it's just because of the world I live in, I think security, right? Just huge availability of data to figure out what's going on if you have an incident or if you're responding to an incident, or where to track down who's talking to whom and in what circumstances.
It is not how we primarily go out and market, but the actual history of Kentik is I was building sensors for people doing PCAP, programs. They were generating flow. Silk is a more commonly used open source tool suite in that space. And people said, we need to keep this for 3 years. And we don't want to use Langcope, and we can't figure out how to use Hadoop. What do we do? It's not where we started focusing because security, to be a small company, your marketing is more important than your technology. And the marketing was not our core DNA. I apologize if anyone is a security vendor.
That's very carefully said. well done.
Okay. So, and we needed some time to evolve
My experience of Splunk is that we use it because it's the only unstructured data tool that exists inside of our infrastructure. And so we just start throwing things, and then suddenly we've got a tool that can do something that we've never been able to do before. So you throw your syslogs at it, and you get really excited about it, and then you realize, oh, it's actually not very good at networking. It's not. The original intention behind Splunk wasn't to be a networking tool; it was meant to be a system administration tool. And then, it was literally designed to collect data from Linux logs.
Right.
And then they went off and decided that there's a lot of money in actually being a big data program. So they went off that way, and all the infrastructure part of it is withered away. It's very second rate for infrastructure databases. But these tools are optimized, in my mind, this type of tool is optimized for networking. It has networking people writing databases and data presentation and writing analytics that we want, because Avi is one of us, right? And that's the goal. So it's completely different from Splunk while being conceptually similar. But Splunk is not just expensive, it's eye-wateringly expensive.
That's a decision we made.
Reassuringly expensive? Is that
Sorry?
right?
Reassuringly.
No, it's not reassuringly expensive.
I need to use that when someone's like.
It's painfully expensive.
That's a Greg Sparrow phrase.
Oh, reassuringly.
Yeah, I've stolen it completely.
And that's a purposeful decision they made.
Yep.
To say we're for business intelligence. You have your other nasty little systems for the raw data. Send us the valuable data to fuse across your They say operational intelligence, which to me means something different, but your CFO, your business operations. And,
but at the start, you don't know what data is valuable.
Yeah.
You don't know
No,
until you get in there, right? And then you're like, oh, I could really use this information, and now I've rolled it up into a 6-month report.
Yep.
And
I find Splunk very counterintuitive because the data query structuring, like the way you do the data queries, is very written for a CFO who's used to using Excel, and I don't think like an Excel program. I'm thinking like an infrastructure person, and it just doesn't work for me. So, and then because I've paid painfully expensive for it, I feel like I have to try harder to make it work, and I always end up just being bitterly unhappy with Splunk.
Avi, so quick question. So it seems like getting started at the edge is probably relatively easy because you can just send your records, et cetera. I think you mentioned before, do you have a proxy to kind of help for the inside stuff as we start to add that?
Yeah, so we have a proxy that will, and a lot of people, SFlow, in theory, you could get some actual payload because it's sending the first bytes of the actual packet.
Right.
And so a lot of people like to encrypt that. So we have a proxy you can install in any Linux box, whatever version, and that will take the flow, do the SNMP querying, and then send it to us as HTTPS multi-threaded in real time.
And I'm guessing it initiates the SSL system.
It does all that, yeah.
Okay.
The only weirdness we get into is we actually, for BGP, like to be able to connect back, so people just have to open up a firewall so we can connect back for BGP.
Do you need a native BGP session, or can you go through the proxy, or do you need a native BGP?
We used to go through the proxy for BGP, and we figured, well, BGP is something you're sending over the internet anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
What for the internal WAN as well?
Yeah. So for the internal WAN, we take iBGP and generally can get that over the net. Most of our customers are happy running that way. Okay. Yeah.
So expanding on that, like do you do any corporate MPLS clouds? Is there any value there? Have you gotten into those things?
Yeah, we have, and we do. The challenge is not all devices. We talked about this. Not all devices can send you flow records for which have MPLS tags and IP, because some of the MPLS. It's not that they don't see it, but even some, depending on what code train of Junos you're running. If it's MPLS switched or something, then it won't do the extra observation. And then there are some devices that do. So for us, MPLS
the TTL and the MPLS cloud. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's more, can we get the data? And then yes, if we qualify that, then yes. Now you can see MPLS as well as IP and group by that. And as we do topology-based views, you'll be able to see that as well.
Okay.
Avi, we had one question from Twitter from Mehmet.
Sure.
Apart from BGP peering, do you also support BMP?
That is something that we've worked on, and Dan will.
The challenge with BMP is that the short answer is we don't today because you can't actually determine the best path from BMP. It's kind of a mirror of all your BGP, and then you have to take responsibility of putting it all together and being your own routing engine, yet you don't have the information that's in the config of the router to be that routing engine. So the answer is we don't today because we can't make use of the data.
We need BGP-LS or IGP peering, and then that's IGP peering. That's a whole thing, right? So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Good job, ITF.
Another question that came in was, at your Nanog talk, you mentioned Kflow will be available soon. Are you planning on putting that up as open source on GitHub?
Dan, the actual library. I have no problem with it.
It is. We have some work to do yet before it would be ready to be publicly open sourced. It is something we are planning on doing. It probably will not be in the first half of 17, though.
Yeah.
If there's a strong enough request for it or case for it, then we could accelerate it.
Yeah. We have no objection in principle. And the library will be out even before for people to do integrations with, like Nginx or things like that. But there's nothing proprietary about it by intent. And in fact, it might, we'll see, if Luca puts it into NTOP instead of nprobe, then maybe that would accelerate it. So let me unlock my screen. And I'll just say back to security, I think we respond to network security groups, but we're not going to go to the CIO and say this will stop all the badness. It's a great forensic tool. It's cheaper than storing all the PCAP for your infrastructure, but it's not primarily how we go in unless there's an RFP out there. And sometimes in enterprise, the DDoS use case, replacing Arbor, or we work a lot with A10 and Radware on the DDoS side, comes out of security budget. In service providers, it's more just availability. Because our view is, DDoS is more like I shove your head in a toilet, and security is like I pick your pocket. Yeah. And often you want to shove someone's head in the toilet before you pick their pocket because then they get distracted. But they're really different things. Sometimes, though, the budget comes from security, and we wind up briefing the CISOs. So, other questions? Well, we will let other people talk, and then I will talk to you again about the network performance side. Again, more of the sensor-based, server-based. And I will just put up one more slide because, whoops, not my mail. The offer I've been instructed to, again, please try Kentik. It is free to try, and we'd love to get some of your flow, and we'd love to walk you through it. Or in this audience, we have a lot of people that say, do not bother me, I can figure it out myself. And then once they've gotten some value, then we show them the rest of it. So.